Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel is Finding Value. And I know everyone likes uranium a lot. I get a lot of views with uranium, so I'm giving you guys more and more uranium content. And if you like that, put that in the comments section and say, Andy, keep continuing. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And I'm going to go through technical analysis. I'm going to give you some price projections. Again, these are not they're not 100%. This is just statistical probabilities. That's all technical analysis is. I am not using technical analysis for my buy points in terms of like price projections. I use momentum slowing down and turning for when I get my entry points. So I don't necessarily use the price projections at all. I'm just throwing them on here because people like price projections. And these are to the downside. I still think there's downside left here, potentially. Doesn't mean it will manifest thatself. It doesn't mean it will manifest in a downward move. I am just looking for probabilities, and I'm not selling my shares. I just want to disclose all that. I'm not trading in and out. The ratio is cheap. The market conditions are at our back. There's no way I'm selling. All right, just want to get that out there. So let's go in, and I'll show you what I've got. So here's technical analysis. We're jumping right in. I'm starting with the ETF Uranium. I still think by looking at this chart, the way it's kind of wedged all up, that we could see a little bit of downside, and I think it might pull back somewhere in this area. We've pulled down, and I've seen no buyers to push this back up into this pattern, at least not yet. It's not over yet. We could get buyers stepping in tomorrow to push this back into the pattern, but it could also roll over. And the price projection somewhere in this mid-50s. And it correlates pretty well with a little bit of support all through here. So that correlates very well. Here's Camco. It came up to a point and got sold off pretty hard. It's coming on up, but it's got less buying pressure than the sell-off. I still think this could meander downward, down to maybe 16 would be a real, like 15, 50, 16 probably is a real low. The price projection goes down to maybe 1750-ish, 1725. For next gen energy, again, we came up into this point. We've got a big down day, and the buyers are not stepping in here. I think we're going to roll over at some point or set up a bearish engulfing pattern where we're going to head lower. The one on this one's got a little bit bigger entrance point. That's where I got it, and it's down. I would say that goes pretty well with the 340, 350 area. That's probably a good projection area. Here's fission uranium. Now, this one is coiling up. It's still hanging on by maybe some tooth floss. It's still hanging in there. But so tomorrow, it has a chance to move on up, but also watch for some downside pressure because we've got the majors kind of coming back. Now, Denison Mines is painting a different picture. You draw this line across, and it's broken to the upside, and it's showing some strength. How long will that be? How long lived is this strength? I don't know, because we've got other companies in the sector pulling back. So it doesn't look bad. Energy Fuels. This one also, there's positives and negatives when you look at this. We've got the large down move here, small up guys, and then the big hammer move down. We've got a small move up, and we've got a small kind of day up here, but it ended strong at the end, which means the momentum's to the upside. We'll see which way this one breaks. Right here, if I was a trader, I wouldn't do anything with it. I'd probably go to another chart and look for something like that's a little bit better entry point. But I don't know. This one's a tough one to read on which the direction is. If I were to guess, I think the pressure is still to the downward side, but the buyers they're hanging in there at the moment. URG Energy, you can kind of tell a little bit that this thing's kind of coming up to a point, just like the other companies. If you want to see it, I'll draw it in real quick. Sorry for not drawing it in prior. But this is what I'm seeing here. Let me get this right here. You see what I'm seeing here? See how this thing's going up into a wedge? So that's the wedge that it's forming, throwing that in there. And I think it could have some downward pressure here. And then the price projection is this width here is the price projection. So it could go down to $1.40 or something like that, which is about right. UECs, this isn't an ascending wedge, it's a sideways pattern. So this very well could break to the upside. But we do have a bearish engulfing, a big move higher or lower. This could roll over just like all the other companies in the sector. Global Atomic, we are contracting in the opening and closing price, which means the buyers are equaling the sellers. Maybe we've got a chance here to move, sideways or up. Goviax still looks, it's hanging in there just fine. We broke the downtrend, we pulled on up, and it's just been going sideways. Doesn't look bad. If it breaks through this guy here, then I would say, all right, it's probably going to head lower. Deep yellow, again, this one's looking just fine. We're moving on, and it's just going sideways. We do have a nice little hammer pattern here with the momentum probably heading to the upside. Forces metals, we are just moving sideways. We do have a bearish engulfing here. This could head lower, so watch for a move lower. We have another bearish engulfing here. Bearish engulfing, bearish engulfing. It could head back. Bannerman's holding in there. I'd say if it falls below 11 cents, you might have to worry a little bit, but we're still up here, still hanging on. Encore Energy is still hanging on in its upward channel. It's doing okay. PurePoint, still above its support line. It's holding in. We do have a bearish engulfing here and a bearish engulfing here, but these very low priced companies, kind of lower volumes, sometimes they throw false signals. So I wouldn't put too much emphasis on it. Blue Sky Uranium, it broke this downtrend here. Is it creating a shoulder, head, shoulder maybe? Don't know, but I'm not selling it. I'm holding on. Sky Harbor Resources, we're in a strong uptrend, looking pretty good in comparison to everything else. Canalaska, it does have a bearish engulfing right here today. We could see some downward pressure. Standard Uranium, it's still coiling on up. We'll see what happens. Baseload, again, we're still sitting on top of this breakout of the downtrend. Doesn't look bad. Quartz bucking the trend. Looks like it wants to break out of its pattern here. So I'm just holding on. Usually it tests this bottom portion in here, and it did right here. So it touched it, came up, and maybe we break to the upside. I don't know. ALX is still holding on. Again, this is tooth floss that's hanging this thing on right at the bottom, but it's still hanging. Centrus looks pretty good in comparison to everything else. Broke to the upside, and it still has some strength. So everything here, I think we're going to see some pullbacks. I mean, that's what the charts are reading on some of them. Other ones are being stubbornly strong. So half the group looks okay. The other half looks like it's going to pull back a little bit. And I'm not adverse to a pullback here. Maybe you can get some cheaper shares. And one thing I will say is when these things do pull back, they usually last longer than a lot of my patience in terms of waiting to buy it. And I usually buy a little bit early. It's just me. And I know it's a trait of mine. I'm working on it. So these do and could potentially have some time before they bottom and turn. So be patient. And again, the ratio is dirt cheap. When I look at things from a long-term, big picture view on investing, I think the market conditions, I think that the supply demand, all of these things support these to go higher, but it doesn't work on the time frame that most new investors want it to work in. And when I was a new investor, I didn't really have a lot of expectations. So people think I didn't grow up in the cell phone world. I'm before that. I'm the old millennial, and I'm far more patient than a lot of other people. So I buy these things, I accumulate for maybe even up to 3 or 4 years, and then you see a large move higher. And most people they can't last in a stock for longer than a few weeks. And your chances of success being in a company for only a few weeks is basically just random luck at that point. And you can be able to read charts, but you have to remember that charts it's just a statistical probability of 60, 70, 80%, somewhere in that range. And then you have to really rely on betting strategies and portfolio allocation and all that stuff. Now, if you take a long-term big picture approach, your success rate goes way up. So it's not a 60 or 70% success rate. If you can figure this stuff out, I think it's more like an 80 or 90% success rate, or even higher than that. It depends how you set this up and the risks that you take. And my suggestion, if you're a younger person and a newer investor, is you don't need to take all the risk in the world. And if you notice, I have very small amounts of money in exploration companies, and I have a little bit more in developer companies, and then I've got a lot more in royalty companies, diversified mining companies, and stuff like that. And then that's a small portion of of my total net worth. And then I've got a lot of physical metals. I am going after risk-adjusted returns. And then I'm also looking at, is this ride up going to be easy or hard? It's always hard in precious metals because it throws you all over the place. I think and hope that uranium is going to be a lot easier because it has been in the past. So the ride matters because it'll scare you out if you have to ride a bull that is just massive and trying to buck you off. If the thing goes straight up with not many pullbacks, that's an easy ride. I think uranium's going to do it when it finally breaks the uranium price. We might see some movements around here. I don't think they'll be incredibly large. I don't think we're going to see some massive pullback unless the overall market pulls back substantially. But I think we'll hang in there, and I think we'll just have a small pullback in the short to medium term. If you guys like this content, please give me a thumbs up. Leave comments below if you guys have any questions or comments that you'd like to make. And thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.